The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Caleb and I had a fantastic start to the show, but since I didn't hit the go live button, you didn't get to hear that. So we're going to recreate it. Sorry, guys, I'm dealing with a little bit of COVID, and this has been quite a week. So let's go ahead and dive into a couple of different things. And Caleb, I kind of like to think of our show compared to other show as the one that can turn people on their ear and can get people thinking in ways that they wouldn't have ever thought before. Do you think that's a good way of, I don't know, putting out a thumbnail sketch of us?
Yes, we try to be unique in our approach to things, and I think we do a better job than most people at doing that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, should Nico Auriemma even play on Saturday? All right, so I've got a pretty good argument for column going up on Off the Hook Sports here shortly. What is Tennessee's biggest football disappointment on offense this season? I feel strongly about that, but it's debatable. How do the Vols remain focused with so many other college football games affecting them this week? This day in Tennessee sports history, 5 minors to watch, and they're of age, but yeah, it's the, pick minors. 5 minors to watch for against the Vols college football recruiting interest. That'll be Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Stat of the day: does this weekend's slate of games validate the expanded college football playoff? And I'm with a co-host here who said all along, Caleb, and you have you not, that this college football playoff would minimize the regular season. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've essentially said that, correct? And I would argue I watched more football that I normally wouldn't care about because of the college football playoff. So give us a tease. Are you backtracking on that at all?
Not one iota.
Okay.
I am more convinced now that this was a good idea than before, that this was a bad idea than before. And I will prove my point. And you guys are all going to be like, wow, he is so smart. I never thought of it that way. Because that's what everybody does when I talk to them.
Everybody like Caleb talks to people that are like setting up his mortgage, and they're like, no, this is going to be 4.8%. He goes, I think it should be 1.2. And they just go, okay. That's how Caleb works. He is very, very, and he's changed my mind a couple of times. He is very, very convincing.
It's like those, did you ever see that Bill Burr comedy sketch? Have you seen it where he talks about like the racial movies that they all make in Hollywood, which it's always like, it's always like, oh, I hate you because of the color of your skin, but I never looked at it that way that I should like you. And that's how it always ends. And it's like, that's not how this stuff happens in real life, guys.
Okay, so here is my contention. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And I'm going to ask it in a different way on the YouTube message board. And that is, do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Okay, so let's start with that quickly before we get into today's tough question. Do you think the average person cares if Nico plays against UTEP?
And you're asking me?
Yeah, well, I'm asking you on behalf of Tennessee's fan base.
So do I think the average Tennessee fan cares?
Yes.
Yes, I think the average Tennessee fan wants Nico Auriemma to play versus UTEP.
Okay. I'm about 60-40 on I disagree with you on that part. Now, I definitely may disagree with you on today's tough question, but as far as do you care, I think the fans that go to the stadium and they get all bundled up, I think they want to see him star. I think at the end of the day, they say it's UTEP. And I'm sorry, but some of these games carry the excitement of an NFL preseason game. So it's today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And Dylan, I'm going to get to that blowout win thing. Hang tight.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Let me lay out some factors real quick. Nico was what heading into the Georgia game? Banged all to hell, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, we think the concussion's fine, and typically those go away, and they're not like a high ankle sprain where they continue to bother you. You're either cleared or you're not, but the second one is a little bit more likely to happen once you've had one. We've seen that in the NFL with Tua Tagovailoa. You also have the shoulder, which I think is fine, the left shoulder, but still. Now, so far on our poll question, do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Yes, I want to see him start. 77% of the vote. No, it's UTEP. 21% of the vote. So let me go to my argument. And really, this is one that struck me this morning. Okay, number one, you don't risk getting him hurt. I don't think he's going to get hurt against UTEP, but if you really do run some RPOs in your regular offense, he's going to get hit some. It's a football game, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you do risk getting him hurt, and I don't think he's nearly as big as he's going to be next year. Number two, Tennessee's going to win by 30 if Gaston Moore goes out there and starts. Okay, so you said something, Dylan, that I want to address. We need blowout wins these next two games. I think you're one of our best posters, Dylan, but I think you're 100% wrong. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to watch this game. I think they'll look at the final score, and with Nico, maybe it's 50-something to 6. With Gaston Moore, maybe it's 40-something to 6. But either way, Tennessee coming off a loss is mad, and they're going to come out and hammer UTEP. I don't care if Navy Schuler is the quarterback. Maybe not as bad as they would with Nico. Now, I am going to give you my one saving grace that you would probably want to argue. And Caleb, I don't have a problem with Navy Schuler playing. Gaston Moore is also a senior. So let him get his bouquet of flowers. That is not my major reasoning, but it is something I would think about. All the College Football Playoff Committee cares about is your one-loss record. Please take a second and click the thumbs up button. Whether or not you agree with that, make sure you're subscribed. But, Caleb, do you really think there's anything Tennessee can do against UTEP to help their college football standing? It's all the other games. I don't care if it's 120-3. Then they would look at Josh Heupel and they would say, you're just running up the score against a lesser opponent. I have no faith in this College Football Playoff Committee. If you went out there and looked super crisp, and I knew that every single College Football Playoff Committee member was watching, then I'm with you. Yeah, play Nico. Look fantastic. Play him the entire game if you want to, but I wouldn't even run him out there for the starting lineup. I wouldn't even dress him because I think Tennessee could win this game easily, Caleb, without Nico Auriemma. So he can prepare for the next game, a better than you think Vanderbilt team. Now, that's my other argument, Caleb. If this was Vanderbilt of old, no, go ahead and run out 50-plus points both times. But Vanderbilt's not a gimme win. They beat Alabama like Tennessee. So your take, Caleb, because I'm going to tell you, I feel strongly you shouldn't even play Nico. This is just like an NFL preseason game, like the fourth one, where they only have two now. But remember when they had the fourth one and none of the starters played?
Yes.
Like essentially all you needed to watch about the preseason was what? It was the first quarter of the third preseason game. This is the fourth preseason game. Caleb's take brought to you by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, am I crazy, Caleb?
You're not totally off. And I'm first going to...
You can tell, by the way, when we come up with our topics at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting and when something hits me, like on the drive over to my studio. So Caleb has kind of gotten thrown a curveball a little bit.
Well, okay. I feel like I'm violating all of my beliefs because I am one of those people that is not, I'm sorry, I'm not, I hate that every game is equally important. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm the one who said throw the SEC championship game. I'm the one who touted and praised Rick Barnes for throwing the SEC tournament last year. So I'm not one that says, you got to keep things going. But I think you have to play Nico this weekend. And I think there's a few reasons you have to play him. You got to keep your offense in a rhythm. Look, the cadences are different from quarterback to quarterback. It's one thing to do what I say and try to get rest and not play. It's another thing to play for the entire first team to play with a totally different quarterback one week. Then they could be totally thrown off a rhythm when they do play Vanderbilt next week, which is a big game that honestly they can't be thrown off rhythm when they're playing. So I think that could I think that could create more bad habits than you're willing to let on than you're willing to admit, because if they spend a whole game playing with Gaston Moore, then the next week they'll kind of be used to Gaston Moore's cadence, Gaston Moore's the way he does everything. And that could really throw them off when Nico comes back in for Vanderbilt, and they need Nico for Vanderbilt. So I think you have to play Nico Iamaleava for that, at least for a half. The other part about this is I am a big believer that part of getting back from injury, a key part of getting healthy from injury, is actually just playing. And so if Nico was banged up last week, if he's healthier this week, I say still play him against UTEP. And you got to get his feet a little wet. I've told you this 1,000 times. Peyton Manning, you bring up NFL preseason. In 2012, when Peyton Manning came back from the 4 neck surgeries, there was talk of holding him out of all of preseason and just getting him to start the season with Denver his first year. He actively went to the coaches and said, no, I need to not just play that one typical preseason game. I need to play 3 of the 4 because I got to get hit. I got to get hit. I got to get back in rhythm. And if I don't get hit, then I'm going to be way too rusty to start the season. And
okay. Time out real quick. He has been hit. The concussion protocol. I mean, I hate to say minor concussion because that's not a PC thing to say, but this was not one where like Tua Tagovailoa could barely get to his feet. So, and I thought it was a little bit shady how Chris Fowler said he looks a little wobbly coming off the field against Georgia. No, he didn't.
A lot of things Chris Fowler said were shady in that game.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst broadcasted games of all time. And I'm not trying to sit there and throw shade on Chris Fowler.
Yeah, normally I like him. I feel like he's kind of become a part of the machine, so to speak. And the SEC is obviously a part of the machine, and ESPN owns the playoffs. So, listen, that whole concussion narrative, it was great for clicks on our site. It was great to talk about, but he practiced all week, I was told, according to multiple sources. There was no way that he wasn't playing on Saturday unless he slipped out of bed, hit his head on Saturday morning, and then didn't pass concussion protocol. So, to me, his feet are wet. Now, you wouldn't say that he needs to go out there and simulate a full game if this were a bye week.
You're saying I wouldn't say he needs to go. No, but
that's the same thing. That's what UTEP is. That's what college football has created.
Yes, but at the same time, a bye week, it's twofold here. That's just one of them. You play UTEP, you are simulating somewhat of a game against UTEP. There is such thing as a tune-up game. Everybody does it. And the other point of this is that, again, the Gaston Moore cadence. You don't want a team to get used to playing with Gaston Moore for a full game.
Okay.
That will throw them off when they play Vanderbilt on the road, where Nashville, I don't know if Tennessee's going to have a home field advantage in Nashville this year the way they typically do.
They still will. They still will. Let me ask you this. And it's brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, and they have the 6-to-1 Brazilian cocoa coffee that I drink, and it's fantastic, unbelievable, and their food is just tremendously good. What's more likely, Nico goes out there and plays, and like Kent State, what was the final score of that game? 70-3?
71-0.
Okay.
Put some respect on Tennessee's name.
Yeah, my bad. 71's a big number, right? Like if you're not even paying attention to the game and you see that on SEC football finals, you're like, whoa, that's a big number. Okay, so maybe the college football playoff committee says, whoa, that's a big number. What's more likely is that they say, whoa, that's a big number, and Tennessee gets in. Everything else goes chalk this weekend, which right now Tennessee would be the first team out. Or that game gets chippy because you're running up the score on UTEP, and they start taking some nasty, dirty shots. We've seen that happen before where Josh Heupel's blown people out and things have gotten chippy, Caleb. And I think the worst thing you want is somebody to take a shot at a knee and one of your key players aren't able to go against Vanderbilt. The more I think about it, guys, I think playing Nico in this day and age, and this is so anti what I believe about football that I can't even believe I'm saying it. But I feel really, really strongly about it. The question now, do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Yes, I want to see him star. No, it's UTEP. Now I'm going to change the tenor of the question. Would it help the Vols if he didn't play against UTEP? So, Caleb, you give me your final thoughts on this, and I want to get to sort of the blame pie when it comes to Tennessee's offense.
You're asking if it would help the Vols against UTEP if he didn't play, or help the Vols overall throughout the scope of the season?
Scope of the season.
Oh, no, it wouldn't help the Vols in the scope of the season.
I still think he's an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I think Nico needs to play. Nico needs to play a half. He needs to keep somewhat in rhythm, and the offense needs to be in rhythm with him and his cadence. I think it would be crazy to not play Nico Auriemma. Not because I think UTEP is important. I'm telling you guys up front, I'm not one of those guys where like every game should be treated the same. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. I think the coaches should not be wasting their time preparing for UTEP this week, and I doubt they are. But I do think you have to keep your quarterback in rhythm, and you don't want to get them out of rhythm by playing with another quarterback whose cadence is totally different. This is why we all have agreed that most of the time alternating quarterbacks doesn't work, Dave. Half the reason alternating quarterbacks doesn't work is the offense is used to responding to a certain quarterback a certain way because of how they call the plays at the line of scrimmage. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And how do you get in any rhythm with that if you're alternating quarterbacks? And it's the same if you start Gaston Moore for a full game. It could cause a problem.
Well, you and I are as opposite ends of the spectrum as we could possibly be on this one. And I know I'm going against everything that I've said for the past 25 years, but I just wouldn't, I wouldn't play him.
Now, here's where you might have me. If you want to do it to just show up college football for the fact that we still have to watch these UTEP games because the college football playoff is basically rewarding teams for playing these games, maybe you got me. Because, I mean, let's be honest. It's we'll talk about the rankings, but based on Indiana being in the top 5, the college football playoff is very basically, are they not saying to every Power 5 team, Dave, now play every Patsy you can possibly play out of conference?
Okay, let me ask you another question. Because here's what Danny White wants. He wants 3 Patsy non-conference games, right?
Correct.
And the college football playoff is saying that's the way to do it. But he also wants to sell tickets. And I've noticed that more tickets have become available even before just on Facebook, social media, Mississippi State, and on and on and on. But if Josh Heupel is talking to Danny White and he goes, I'm thinking about sitting Nico, do you think Danny White would veto him? Say, no, you have to put on a good show, the show that people want to see. That'd be like me going to see Guns N' Roses back in 1992 and Axl took the night off. That would suck. It'd be awful, wouldn't it?
It would.
If I went out there and sat in the cold and you didn't play Nico, that's a different subset of fans.
Well,
Once we're sitting at home and get the big picture.
Let me tell you why. You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. But we're just acknowledging, because we're going to talk about it later, that Dave's just acknowledging I was right about the college football playoff. He's acknowledging that it's devalued the regular season so much that you should sit your starting quarterback for a game. Okay,
no,
Dave is calling for load management, which the NBA does.
I am calling for load. I think this is
That never
I think
existed.
this is a unique
before.
situation. I think this is a unique situation. I don't think it's across the board. Chattanooga Mortgage, congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat Mortgage, chat with 2 T's, mortgage.com. Later today, we will visit with the one, the only Cooper Mays, and that's brought to you by City Heating and Air. cityheatandair.com, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. This is a fantastic time to get your HVAC unit looked at and make sure that you're good for the remainder of the year. And when you stay ahead of that, it's less likely just to conk out, and nobody wants that. All right, 4 downs. What is Tennessee's biggest disappointment on offense this season? 4 downs today, brought to you by Medicare Misty.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, so we got 4 that we want to look at. 4 areas of Tennessee's offense, because we can all agree the tight ends have been pretty spectacular, right?
They have.
Okay. So let's start with Cooper Mays telling us what to do. Coop, what should we do if we want to be a part of the program? Oh, we shouldn't do that. Coop, try again. That's my fault. Coop, what do you got?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Offensive tackles. Are we doing blame pie here? Is that the way you want to do it? Or do you want to pick one that is the biggest issue?
We're going to analyze each one's issues and how they've held the team back. And then at the very end, we will determine who is the worst of the group. Okay. So let's start with offensive tackles.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give things away. It's the offensive tackles. It not only hurt Tennessee in the Oklahoma and Arkansas game, cost them 1 win, could have cost them 2, but it also slowed Nico Iamaleava's development. This guy would be at a step higher level right now if he didn't see ghost for about a third of the season, because there were guys coming in from the interior. There was pass pressure coming in from the interior. So to me, I don't care if we're playing blame pie or not, and we can discuss at the end of it who you think is most culpable, but it's the offensive tackles. And I respect them because I think they've come along and played at a much higher level. But you give me an argument why it's not the offensive tackles.
I mean, it's hard for me to give you an argument. I would say because they have come along recently and gotten better, not great, but gotten better. But I'll say this for you, and this is something that is a feather in your cap. We're talking about an 8-2 Tennessee team right now that is disappointing, which is weird to talk about. If not for the offensive tackles more than anybody else, this Tennessee team would be 9-1. They're only lost to Georgia. Everybody would have taken that at the beginning of the year. Everybody would have, everybody, and Tennessee would still be in prime position to go to the SEC title game, go to the college football playoff. They pretty much have it locked up. So you're right. The offense. The reason I can get with you on the offensive tackles is because it cost Tennessee the Arkansas game, and that Arkansas game is the only drawback of this team this year. Because as ugly as they looked, as awful as they've looked at times, as many problems as they've had, if they beat Arkansas, we're looking at a 9-1 team whose only losses to Georgia on the road, and nobody's complaining.
Agreed. And Justin, I see you. All the more reason for Nico to play so he can further improve seeing ghost from the offensive tackles. That is a good point. So are you good on the offensive tackles? You ready to move on? Because to me, it's 100% the offensive tackles this year. When you look back this year, this is, to me, is the season of the offensive tackles and lack thereof. That Tennessee was this close to being an elite team, but they depended on a transfer who's still young, who had a leg injury, and Lance Hurd and John Campbell Jr., who just seems beat up all the time. That, to me, is the narrative of this entire season, no matter how it ends.
I can get with you on this, but I think we could put it this way. Offensive tackles maybe get the most blame. They may not be the ones who've come up the shortest based on expectations at the beginning of the year.
No, I will give you that, and I know where you're leaning. Coop, what down?
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
All right. Next would be quarterback.
Yes. I get what you're saying, and most of us believe a bunch of other issues surrounding Nico Iamaleava have been the issue. But the truth is, Nico Iamaleava has very little moxie. It feels like his mental toughness is very much in question. He has gotten nervous at times, and at some point, you have to ask the question, like, okay, we're blaming all these people for him seeing ghosts, but shouldn't he be mentally tough enough to overcome that as a quarterback? You expect your quarterback to be able to overcome that, particularly when only one of these guys we're talking about got $2 million. And it wasn't the offensive tackles.
But I've even seen the all-time great Tom Brady see ghost when they had like one season where they had a problem with interior pressure. So to me, that's as natural as you're walking down the hall and I stick out my foot to trip you. That's my fault if you fall down.
I have seen quarterbacks who have terrible offensive line, though, also will their team at least to the playoffs in the NFL because they overcome it. Peyton Manning in his prime, Tom Brady. I remember the 2015 Patriots with Tom Brady had a makeshift offensive line. The only one who I haven't seen.
But time out. This is a bigger issue. Why is Tennessee suddenly missing tackles? Why is Tennessee not making defenders miss? They don't go one-on-one in practice nearly enough. I've told you before that the practices are soft. They don't tackle. That's a fact. And I'm not just comparing that to back in the old days where it was suck a salt towel. I'm talking about Caleb. I mean, they don't go against one-on-ones enough. Source told me that. That is a fact. And that's something that Josh Heupel is going to have to look at.
Oh, I think he will. He absolutely will. He's going to have to change a lot of things about his practice habits this offseason. But I think at the roots, you have to put some of this on Nico. You do. Put it this way. We're seeing this is why in the NFL, I think we have come to an agreement that Aaron Rodgers will never, ever, ever be in the tier of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Is that fair to say? Ever. Even when in his prime, when people thought he was actually maybe better than those two, one of the things I always said was if Aaron Rodgers had to play with a makeshift offensive line, he would be awful because he holds the ball so long trying to make plays.
Okay,
what's happening?
Tom Brady would have been worse with a makeshift offensive line.
No, Tom Brady has. I've seen Tom Brady with a makeshift offensive line.
Caleb, Nico was taught and practiced in the vein of the pocket's going to be there, and you're going to have time to make a read. And then he goes through the first month of the season, and that's all the case. And then when he starts playing the Oklahomas and the Arkansas of the world, it's kind of like I just pulled the carpet out from under you. And that happened in October instead of September. And I don't think there was much of a chance to react from that. Close us up on this one, and then I want to move forward.
I don't think you can leave him out of this, though. The guy ran out of bounds on a game-winning touchdown on the final play of the game, trying to make a game-winning pass.
I agree.
I mean,
what down is next? Brought to you by Medicare Misty.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Wide receivers. Guys, this is not my biggest one, and it is the offensive tackles for a couple of reasons. I figured out pretty early in the season that the wide receivers were not what we thought they would be. Okay, I think that Brew McCoy has lost a step. I think that through no fault of his own, Squirrel White was dealing with an injury, a shoulder injury. Chaz Nimrod did not take a step in the offseason. Dante Thornton, I don't know if they're going to line him up at tight end at some point. He doesn't look like he's been handled correctly. So this one is not as much of a damning quality to me, Caleb, and you may disagree, because I realized pretty early I got my preseason expectations too high.
Yeah, I think so too. And I held out longer than probably you did in wanting to blame the wide receivers because I felt there were so many other issues and I've been so high on them. I just didn't want to admit that there are some issues, but there's some real issues with it. I mean, Brew McCoy, he had clearly lost a step this year. I felt they still should have gone to him more than they have. I'm going to be honest with you.
Great.
But they're just not getting the separation I thought they would. Now, and then when they are getting the separation, they're not catching the balls a lot of times. Now, you could say this, Dave, and this is because of the other issues we're talking about. Is it possible that, look, they're just not in a rhythm right now? And they're not in a rhythm because of, I mean, we can be honest here. They're not in a rhythm because of the issues in the quarterback play in the passing game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it puts more pressure on them to load the box. And Yeah, Dylan pointed out on our message board that it's been the guards getting whipped too. Recently, it has. The interior of the offensive line didn't play their best game against Georgia, but I go back to what Arkansas did in shifting guys around at the front. I don't think they believed coming into the season they were going to get confused a lot. And turns out with the tackle situation, that's the case. I sound like a broken record. Here's with the wide receivers. I think you miss one guy, Jalen Hyatt, that they don't have. But the wide receiver play, I can't point the finger at that. And I would go back to you, who says that Nico takes a lot of the blame. Out of the downfield passes that haven't connected, what percentage would you put on Nico? That they never had a shot to catch it.
I would put 65, 70% on Nico. I feel like he's missed more than they've dropped things. But maybe I'm watching something different, David. That's how I felt. What about you? I don't know where you come in on that, but
I'm at about 50.
You're at about 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're really close. Fourth down's coaching. Doesn't it all come down to coaching? Medicare Misty, licensed in over 40 states, can take care of your Medicare needs at no cost to you.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
I kind of hate it when we say coaching, Coop.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Because it's all ultimately on coaching, right? We could say that every year.
Unless it's injuries. But
yeah. Most years you could say this team played at an elite level because they just coached it through the roof. Or you could say this team didn't make it happen because they didn't, in this particular case, get the offensive tackles ready or had enough depth at the offensive tackle position. So it all comes back to coaching. These coaches didn't either get the right receivers for their system that have a little shift, that have a little speed, Jalen Hyatt, or they didn't develop them. I mean, we could play that game all day long. They weren't nice enough to Max Gilbert before he missed the 3 field goals in that one game. I mean, it all comes down to Josh Heupel coaching.
Yeah, but you and I have both covered some teams where the coaches do everything right and they can't, for instance, get the players to take things seriously. I don't think really it's Philip Fulmer's fault that the 99 team didn't match the 98 team's resume. I don't think the 99 team approached every game with the same level of hunger that the 98 team did. And
totally agree with that.
Yeah. I think they took a lot of games for granted and were just trying to get out of there with wins, and that cost them against Arkansas.
Uncle Dave's story, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Speaking of the 99 game and lack of passion like they had in 98, they stay at a team hotel for a week before a bowl game. That's how it's different than an average trip. And at one point, Philip Fulmer, I was told, walked up to some of his key players that and they were sitting there having a bourbon the night before the game. Just weren't trying to hide it. Were semi-nervous when Philip came over, and Philip just said, well, I guess there's nothing I can do now. I mean, they already had a national championship in their pocket. Their bowl destination was already set. That's why that game got out of hand in 99. Really, really bad.
I fully believe that. Also, Nebraska was on steroids. No, actually, no, they weren't that year. No, this is the Frank Solich years. They dropped the steroids by that point. So
do you ever really stop steroids? You get addicted to that look and that pump, I've been told. I had one person in particular tell me he takes them. He's like, I'll take them to the day I die.
I think they were much more prevalent under Tom Osborne. You saw a pretty clear drop off from Tom Osborne to Frank Solich. And guys, there's just a reason Frank Solich decided he had to abandon that triple option. I'm just going to leave it at that. But yeah, so I believe you. I believe you on that. And it's
100% true.
Well, no, I know. And it's not, and I don't just want to pick on the 99 team. I talk about the kick six all the time, Dave. You know that. That's my favorite spectacle in the moment. But why was that game even possible? Because Alabama at that point, they had won 3 national championships in 4 years, back to back. Did you notice that 2013 Alabama team was just taking wins for granted and going through the motions? And how many times did Nick Saban get upset? Like, did a team get upset because they were just they were just going through the motions of games? And
I think that's more of a rarity. I think if you take 10 years, you could point to coaching 9 times. In 1 year, you could point to coaching attitude, but it's still the coach's responsibility to set up the right culture.
It is, but you can set up the best culture. As Nick Saban said, the human nature is not to thrive, it's to survive. So that's why winning 2 titles or 3 titles is so much harder than just winning 1, because it's how do you keep that same level of hunger? It's almost impossible. So I think you saw that a little bit this year. I think the Arkansas game, Tennessee was coming off a bye. I don't think it was Josh Heupel. I think Tennessee I don't think Josh Heupel could have done anything to get Tennessee up for that game. Now, offensive issues on their own, yeah, I'll go coaching to a degree. I think there has not been creativity offensively. We talked about Joey Halzle yesterday. I don't think they've taken enough deep shots. I actually don't think they've gone to Dylan Sampson enough in the second half sometimes. I think they have too often, Dave. I'll be honest with you, more than they should have. They've too often worked the middle of the field a little too much with Nico.
See, I don't think they have the choice because there's just not, and that goes back to quarterback or wide receivers. I didn't think there was the connection and the chemistry there. There's always chemistry at Peak IV Hydration, the chemistry that will help you live life to your fullest. If we can drop that chat in there, help hydronate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. And they've got the location in South Knoxville in Sevierville. You can also order the patch on peakivhydration.com. Also want to thank our friends at Quality Tire Pros. He called me up the other day, and if you're in Chattanooga and you need car work, he's the guy. And he's like, Dave, I got to be honest with you. It's your daughter's car. We could do all these things. I could give you this tab, and you could pay it, and that's great. Good for my business. But he said, I don't know, this car is worth it. And he was just really honest. And that's what you get at Quality Tire Pros. Quality Tire Pros. Stop by and tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports and Dave Hooker said hello, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. An absolute scorcher coming up. Good job, Caleb Calhoun. This day in Tennessee sports history, and how do the Vols remain focused with so many other college football playoff games affecting them this weekend? Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover, cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Way to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back to the program. Did I mention that you heard just a second ago that if you just stop by Dynasty Pools and Spas, you can say, hey, where's my Off the Hook Sports gift? And you can win a t-shirt just for stopping by or a book, whichever you would prefer. I want to go to the message board for a second because you guys are throwing heat today. And here was the point that I wanted to make in particular. Timothy says, Hypo is calling plays, dude. I don't doubt that. But you know something that David Cutcliffe told me years ago? He said play calling is the most overrated aspect of coaching because you should have the set number of plays for the down and distance where you might have to make a decision or two, but it's not as if you open the playbook and you go, I got 250 plays. What am I going to call on 3rd and 7 in the third quarter? You already have that mapped out. So here's my problem with Joey Halsley and why I think he's come up short. It's game planning. It's putting together a game plan so you know exactly what to do in those moments. And how many times have you seen Josh Heupel turn to that analyst dude who has to look at it and tell him whether or not to call a timeout? I mean,
all the time.
That? You could be hired for that tomorrow, Caleb.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, I give Josh Heupel credit for doing that because
It's not that hard.
Here's what I think happens. Look, I do my Football IQ segment every week. Y'all know I talk about how coaches are so stupid with their in-game decisions sometimes. Here's what I think happens. They're so in the weeds, focusing on so many details that don't you think sometimes they just forget the obvious thing?
No.
And
I mean, yes and no. You said coaches are so stupid, and then you said sometimes. If you just put a period at the end of that sentence, if you just said just coaches are so stupid, then yes, you're right.
Guys, I'm the one who attacks coaches, and now Dave's
that's why they screw stuff up. It is. But Josh Heupel is not that kind of coach. I mean, there are really smart coaches that can handle that, and it needs – I know you love analytics, but it needs to be a natural feel. For instance, the Georgia game, I believe it was, there's 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. Call a timeout there and extend the game. Don't run it down to the 2-minute warning, which is what they did.
Okay, yes, I get what you're saying. What I'm trying to say, though, and look, there are some coaches that are and just will blow you away with their stupidity at lower levels too. My next week's Football IQ, just doing a tease. You guys should have seen Kent State, who Tennessee played. You should have seen some of Kenny Burns' like great stupid coaching on Tuesday in a midweek game. It was hilariously bad. But I would say that I think everybody hires analytic coaches now because not to tell them what to do, but to tell them what the analytics say, and then they can add the feel on their own. You can do both things. I screamed the whole time Butch Jones was at Tennessee, Dave. I'm like, he needs to hire an analytics guy. He needs to hire somebody up in the press box to tell him what to do because he ain't smart enough. And so just hire a coach, just hire somebody, make him an on-field staff member. That's more valuable than a tight ends coach half the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
A guy to be like, hey, don't do this in this situation.
Steven says, Dave, the OC is definitely a person who either helps or ruins an offensive series. Steven, I agree with you, but I think that's done on Monday and Tuesday. I don't think that's done on Saturday. Now, I believe for the most part, its game planning has been the biggest issue that they have had. But I do agree with you. And by the way, that analytics guy just looks like he's lost. I mean, I'm sorry, but he's wide-eyed at the end of the game. You know, he's never been asked to be under that sort of pressure. To me, that's your head coach's job. Now, if you need a chart, that's fine, but you don't need an analytics guy. This day in Tennessee sports history is what, Caleb Calhoun, is where it's November the 21st.
Yes. On this day in 1987, Tennessee beat Kentucky 24-22, surviving, killing Kentucky's chances at bowl eligibility. Kentucky was led by 6th-year head coach Jerry Claiborne. They were 5-5, needing to beat Tennessee to go to a bowl, and Tennessee snatched that dream from them to win 24-22. The Vols went 10-2-1 that year, finished 14th in the AP and coaches poll. They tied Auburn, funny enough, but they still ended up not winning the SEC title because they lost to Alabama that year. But had they actually beaten Auburn, Tennessee would have been SEC champs, Dave. Funny enough.
Yep. All right, 5 minors to watch as the Vols are going to put UTEP underground. This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our good friend Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. So let's go ahead and dive into the minors to watch. Okay, and like back in the day, you had to be careful if you're like 21 or 22 because you had to, you know, make sure that she wasn't a minor. But anyway,
or he, depending on who you were, or he. I covered a Tennessee signee that may have had relations with the principal. You can go back and Google it. He was 17 at the time. Things didn't work out. Blah blah blah. We don't have to talk about that. 5 minors to watch as the Vols will bury them and put them underground. Yes, 5 UTEP minors to watch. Minors with an E, not minors with an O. Yes. We don't need hookers watching minors here. So we're gonna go down this list. I'm gonna start off with this, Dave. I feel like this is the R. Kelly segment. 5 minors to watch. Said roll around sitting on doves. Okay, sorry. I mean that's the thing. He would find a 16-year-old he thought was cute, and then keep an eye on her till the day she turned 18, and then she got a phone call. Creepy. All right, 5 minors to watch. Number 5. Restart that segment. Number 5 minors to watch is who? 5 UTEP minors to watch against Tennessee. I am going to start by saying I'm leaving out the quarterbacks. Caden McConnell has been banged up all year. He was their star. Skylar Locklear has been starting in his place. He hit concussion protocol at the end of October. It's very debatable what's going to happen at quarterback. So I am throwing the quarterback out. Don't worry about who's playing quarterback at UTEP. Can't worry about who's playing quarterback at UT. All right, who's next? Yes. Number 5 is Maurice Westmoreland. I have done all the possible research in the world to find out if this is Eric Westmoreland's son, and I see nothing to connect them. I thought it was. I was going to be excited, but I did the same thing when Hendon Hooker was playing quarterback. Really? Even though he was a different color? No, you look at I'm as Scotch Irish as they get, and he is not. So we may be related. I'm not saying my great grandmother, didn't get around. I don't know, but it seems highly illogical that we're related. Yeah. So Maurice Westmoreland is one of the top 5 NFL prospects on this team. He only has 4.5 sacks and 6
one of the top 5 NFL prospects on this team or in the draft?
On UTEP. On UTEP.
Okay. Because there's not a UTEP player that's going to go in the first round.
No, there's not. But he has 4.5 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss. He is their edge rusher specialist. And given what we've been talking about Tennessee's offensive tackles this year, they need to watch out for every edge rusher, particularly in this 3-3-5 that Scotty Walden's going to run at Tennessee. They're going to confuse the tackles at times. So Maurice Westmoreland could be dangerous. I'm not worried about the true edge rushers anymore with Tennessee. I think Tennessee gets out and gets their hands on them. And I think once Lance Hurd does that, as long as they don't hold, and John Campbell does that, I think they're in good shape. My concern is like the kid at Arkansas who realized that they were overplaying on the outside and he started coming into the B gap. That's my concern. That was a highly intelligent game,
by that young man whose name eludes me. I'll give him the ultimate compliment. He needs to be a Dallas Cowboy tomorrow. Who's next?
All right, up next is Kenny Odom. Now, Kenny Odom is basically the only offensive weapon they have. He's got 36 catches for 642 yards and 7 touchdowns on the year. He's a 5'8", 163-pound receiver, Dave. So they sneak him out into the flats and over the middle of the field to make plays. And you know those like little sneaky guys can always kind of be hard to account for when you're on defense because they just come out of nowhere. My best example is, you remember Trendon Holiday at LSU?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. He's that type of guy. So you got to watch out for him no matter what. Kind of like
Honey Badger. Honey Badger is a good example. When I first saw him play, I was like, he doesn't have size speed ratio to be able to do this thing. He's not big enough. And I was like, oh, my bad.
Yeah. The funniest one, though, is the guy who wasn't even that fast, but he managed to sneak out in every play was Jacob Hester. Remember that?
Yep.
He could catch you. We're just naming LSU guys that did it. But yeah, I think that I think Kenny Odom could be that type of guy. He's kind of like what Tennessee wanted Squirrel White to be this year, if we're being honest.
Yep. Okay, so you're talking about offense. I was talking about small guys as a whole. Okay, who is next? Are we down to number 2?
No, we're down to number 3 because remember, I'm ignoring the quarterbacks.
Okay,
Number 3 is Corey Chapman. He leads the team. He's the nickel, Dave, but he leads the team with 11 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, has an interception. Scotty Walden likes to use him a lot on different gadget plays and things like that. You talk about not being worried about the offensive tackle, about the edge rushers. You're probably right, but he's the type of guy that will confuse the offensive line if they're not careful because they'll send him on different stunts and blitzes that they may not be ready for.
Well, they haven't handled stunts and blitzes particularly well at times this season, especially in October. All right,
been horrible. By the way, we haven't really questioned Glenn Ellerbe the way we should. How is the offensive line not picking up stunts and blitzes?
I saw that post in the message. Here's why I don't have a problem with Glenn Ellerbe. Is I don't think he's been given a full set of tools in a toolbox. I don't think. I think it's been you either get this guy
ready. Is that
ready.
somewhat not on him though? Do you not think it has Josh Heupel's ear over who he wants to get?
I think Tennessee has had to play the game to this point of getting guys that Georgia and Alabama were so on. And I think they've had to play the early evaluation game. So I don't have a problem they're not to Georgia's front. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't have overcome that. And by year 4, just like Josh Heupel said on Monday, you should go out there and compete for championships. A what? What's the word they call it? A moral loss. I mean, they're past that.
They're way past that. They're way past the moral loss.
But I will say this. I don't think they're past the point where they say, hey, Tennessee, we have the exact same amount of talent that Georgia does. I think they're close, and I don't think there's a talent issue, but I do believe that it's still out there. All right, number 2, Caleb?
Number 2 on this list is Dorian Hopkins. Dorian Hopkins is the middle linebacker for this team. Again, in Scotty Walden's 3-3-5, the linebackers make huge plays and can confuse the offensive line. And I don't know if he runs a 3-3-5 regularly, but he ran it at Tennessee last year, and he's going to run it again on Saturday, guys. And Josh Heupel still hasn't proven he can figure that out. Hopkins leads the team in total tackles with 73. He's got 28 solo tackles, and he also has 8 tackles for a loss, a sack. And Dave, he also has 2 picks, a fumble recovery, and a forced fumble. So he pretty much has the whole shebang. Your typical classic middle linebacker.
All right, bank on it. The number 1 minor to watch is whom, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. I love them. Been in business with over 20 years. You should move. Commercial Bank. Tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
The number 1 minor to watch is whom?
Sion Tanguia.
Oh my gosh, is he related to Tua Tagovailoa? Oh, they might have spelled this in.
Well, he is the nose tackle for UTEP. And he basically is, and you know this, Dave, they call him a space eater. A good space eater in a 3-3-5 defense can make the defense dominant. Now, spoiler alert, he's 6 feet, 295 pounds. So he's not going to be a space eater against Power 5 competition, typically. But he understands leverage, from my understanding. So it'll be kind of a leverage battle between him and Cooper Mays. I think Cooper Mays should win this one-on-one battle with him, no matter what. And if he does, Tennessee's offense will roll. But if you have to...
Go ahead.
If you have to move a guard, if you have to move an extra blocker over and let him eat up space, then all of a sudden Tennessee could have problems with their offense.
Cooper said before that he prefers playing bigger nose guards because he feels like his speed then helps him. This guy's a smaller one, but let's face it. He's at UTEP. He's a minor. Coop's going to be just fine. Would we agree with that? And Coop's probably coming off one of his not so better games against Georgia. So I think he's very motivated and very much will manhandle this young man. I'm not excited about this young man or playing this game if I'm this young man today. I'm glad you pointed him out, but I think this is going to be a long day for whatever you call him.
Sion Tanguia. No, I agree. I think it's mostly going to be a long day. I just think for Tennessee to not sputter offensively and be able to put this game away early, they need to make sure they manhandle them.
Okay, so the poll question along these lines, now that we've given you the 5 minors to watch, not R. Kelly style, but 5 minors to watch in just 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you that Tennessee's going to thump this team and why. And it's our poll question right now. Vote on it. If Tennessee doesn't beat UTEP by 40, will you be disappointed or not? And I remind you that you've got to check out TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
All right, so the poll question involves don't beat UTEP by 40. I'm worried 40% of the vote. I'm good. Rest dudes. 60% of the vote. So where do you stand on that? Do you think Tennessee needs to make a statement? In the old BCS thing, here's how it would go down, guys. Tennessee would beat this team 70-3, and Philip Fulmer would say after, well, you know, you got this situation where margin of victory is a big deal, and I hate doing it, even though, you know, he loved ringing it up. But he had an excuse to do it. So I don't think you have to do that. I don't think the college football playoff is going to watch any more. What's it? You've done this before. An average highlight pack for a game is what, 12 plays, 14 plays?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all they're going to watch.
Oh, I agree. It's like those, you cover recruiting, Dave, you know, when players put their highlight reel on is it Huddle? Is that what it's called now? HUDL online. And they put their highlight reels and their videos from their high schools. And it's like, okay, anybody can anybody can be evaluated favorably with a highlight reel that they do. Like,
you know the other trick that they used to do? You'll hear this, especially in Kentucky, because Kentucky has as many slow dudes on a high school football field and a given night as, I don't know, your local retirement home.
What do they do? I want to hear this.
They speed the tape up.
Really?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
I watched one dude and I was like, I had a buddy on Tennessee staff, and I said, I just think you need to take a look at this guy because he's way faster than I thought. And he goes, Dave, I hate to tell you something. Because that school is notorious for speeding the tape up just a little bit. You can't like really tell. But then when I started watching the rest of the dudes that look like you and me, that I started watching the rest of the dudes, and they look pretty fast too. And I was like, oh, I just got duped.
That is hilarious. I did not know they do that.
Away?
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. The thing is, like, yeah, that's I can't believe that. I mean, I do believe it, but oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So I think you would want Tennessee to beat UTEP by 40, but this is actually going to get into our next topic, or I assume it's our next topic. I'm letting you lead the show, but you know, I think if you're Tennessee, you'd much rather certain games fall a certain way than worry about making sure you blow out UTEP, because there's a lot of other games on your mind right now if you're Tennessee.
Okay. Let's get to that right now. Because we got the Miners to watch, and I know Caleb wanted to get that. Out of the way early. He was all about, I got to talk about my Miners to watch. I'm like, Caleb, easy. You're a dad now. What are you talking about? And college football playoff rooting interests are a big deal for all of us. Are they a big deal for Tennessee's football players? And I think there's a realistic conversation to be had that the University of Tennessee, now fortunately they don't have a night game, but the University of Tennessee could be a little bit more focused on what happens on other fields than their field. And that's disturbing. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. You give me 2 minutes. We'll dive into a couple of different topics that I know you'll want to be a part of. And one, college football rooting interest. And I just don't know how you can be a man that cares about what happens this season and not have your eye on other games. I don't care if you're wearing a Tennessee uniform or not. Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team that gets the job done. It's Ford commercial truck season at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton, where our strong lineup is built for power and performance. Step up your game in this new 24 F-150 4x4 Super Crew, $46,997. At 250 cargo van, $50,950. 24 Ford Maverick XLT Hybrid, $28,929.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, thanksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
I was asked this morning by a station in Nashville. At the end of the day, I say significant amounts too. Do you think the Big Ten or the SEC will have a significant amount more of teams in the college football playoff? Because I think they're working together now. They're colluding, and they want to make it even. So it's either going to be 4-5 or 4-4-5-5. Does that make sense?
It can't be 4-4-5-5. Or you mean it can't be 5-5? There can't be 2-5.
Okay.
They can't. It's impossible to have.
Okay. So I think it could be 4-5, but there's no way it's going to be 4-6. I don't care what happens the rest of the way.
Yeah. No. It's 4-5 is the max they could do, and there are 4 Big Ten teams. Right here's what what you're saying, Dave, is they won't do 5-3.
Correct. Or like next year's going to be our only other year. They're not going to do 6-4. They're not going to do 5-3 or not. They're just not. They're never going to let that happen. They're working together.
Dave, if you think that, then Tennessee's in big trouble, because Tennessee's biggest hope is for the Big Ten to go 3 and Tennessee and the SEC go 5, because they need Indiana knocked out. If Indiana's knocked out, there's not a 4th team that's getting in. The Big Ten is locked in at 4 teams right now. So what you're saying, it's possibly true. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying if that's the case, and you're saying this Indiana-Ohio State game means absolutely nothing this weekend, and Indiana's going to be in no matter what.
And I know I'm in the minority. We've had
you're
John
not
Adams
in the minority.
A lot of people think we've had John Adams and Jimmy Holmes both agree with you.
Yeah, but Josh Pate agrees with you. I mean, we haven't had him on, but like there's people that we've talked to that they agree with you. They think that the Big Ten is going to keep that the college football playoff. Here's what they do. You are right. They don't look at resume or eye test. They are basing it off record and conference. So basically, SEC teams, Big Ten teams, they just rank them based on record. And then they'll throw in the other teams no matter what. But if you're an SEC or Big Ten team, they have basically told us that you are what your record says you are. They are treating it like the NFL in that way, which is so stupid, because Indiana has – Dave, did you know that – I told you Indiana hasn't beaten one team with a winning record all year. They haven't played one team with a winning record.
Yeah, their schedule is like 106.
Did you know that after they play Northwestern next week, they will have played their Big Ten schedule will have involved the Big Ten schedule is 9 games. Indiana will have played the 8 teams to finish in the bottom of the Big Ten.
Yeah, but I'm going to play that devil's advocate. That's not their fault. The Big Ten gave them a schedule, and they've handled it.
It is their fault to play Western Illinois, FIU, and Charlotte.
Not really. If you're in the Indiana program, you're growing. Now, if you want to penalize them for that, that's fine. But I don't have a problem with them scheduling that game. Now, Caleb and I don't often strongly disagree about something, but this has been one of those shows where I've been like, crazy. Caleb's just crazy. And now he's going to be like, Dave's just crazy. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Brought to you by Double D Piping. Do you think this Tennessee football team can get distracted by the fact that they're playing in the most meaningless game among all college football playoff competitors, and they're going to have an eye on Ohio State and Indiana? That could actually hurt what they do on the field in Neyland Stadium against the of-age Miners on Saturday.
Yes, it could absolutely hurt what they do on the field. And I'm not saying it could make them lose it, but they could look ugly. I have precedent for this. Dave, there are 2 seasons in Tennessee history where they were playing meaningful November games where they needed help for some championship aspirations. You know what they were?
Mm-hmm. Wait on me.
97 and 2001. Okay. 2001, by November, they controlled their own destiny of win the East, and there was that Florida game looming in December, but they were hoping they could get into the national title race. So what did they do that year, Dave? Do you remember that? Do you remember that Kentucky game that year where Jared Lorenzen almost beat them, where they fell 21-0?
Yes, he rolled up a buffet of points.
He did.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. I'm sorry.
Dave, you don't think that's because Tennessee was distracted by other games going on that day? Of course they were. They desperately needed Nebraska to lose. They were desperately hoping Michigan would lose. They were desperately hoping these other teams would lose so they could get in. The same thing is happening. The same thing happened in 97. Now, let me break down what happened actually in 1997 when Tennessee won the East, which was an underrated way how they won the East. So they lose to Florida, and you think they're done when they lose to Florida, right? They're not. When they lost to Florida, you were following Tennessee at the time. You're like, they're not winning the East. It's over. Florida's going to win it again because they've done it the last 5 years.
Yep.
What happened?
And Florida had to lose 2 because you lose a tiebreaker.
Yes. So what happens? The day that Tennessee blows out Georgia, Florida breathes new life into Tennessee because they get upset by LSU. All of a sudden, Tennessee's got a SEC title berth on the line. So if Florida loses another game, Peyton Manning and Tennessee go play South Carolina on November the 1st at 12:30 that day. Florida was playing Georgia at 3:30 that day. Every Tennessee fan cared about the Florida-Georgia game because if Georgia beats Florida, Tennessee's in. Dave, Tennessee only beat South Carolina 22-7, and that was a terrible South Carolina team, and they limped to victory in an ugly win. Luckily for them, Georgia did beat Florida, so they didn't care. I'm going a step further. November the 15th, Tennessee is playing at Arkansas. They are number 5. Now, all of a sudden, Dave, you're thinking about not just the SEC title, but you're thinking about the national title at this point because there's 4 teams ahead of you, and you're hoping some of them lose. Two of those national title teams ahead of you were Ohio State and Penn State. Both had games lining up while you were playing Arkansas. Tennessee had to come back to beat Arkansas that day. Fast forward 2 weeks later, Tennessee's playing Vanderbilt, needing to win to go to the SEC title. They're number 4. Ahead of them in their way in that moment is Penn State, who's playing Michigan State. They barely beat Vanderbilt 17-10 because they really want Michigan State to beat Penn State that day, which Michigan State does. Thank you, Nick Saban, if you're a Tennessee fan. So all I'm saying is there is a track record, and history bears it out, of when you are worried about other November games, you can look ugly playing football yourself. It has happened time and time again.
Okay, but here's the track record.
And by the way, that cost Peyton Manning the Heisman. That cost him the Heisman was because he was playing horrible in November.
Okay, but here's the track record you need to be more aware of. Is this team's bounced back every time this year, right? They bounced back from a so-so performance, but they bounced back from a loss to Arkansas, despite still having offensive tackle issues. I believe they'll bounce back this week. I believe the leadership of this team is too strong. Now, I know you don't like it when I use the C word, culture, but I believe this team's culture is too strong. I think you look at some of those other teams, and they were maybe a little bit more star-laden. I mean, I covered those teams, and maybe they thought that, and they thought, well, how do I kind of wiggle my way out of this? Because opt-out wasn't a thing where I get myself ready for the NFL. And then when those losses happened that you're talking about, and suddenly a championship was back at play, they said, whoa, let's try to do this. I don't think this team, somebody in Tennessee's program told me the Sunday before the Mississippi State game. I said, what do you think about this week? He goes, wait, who do we play again? I think this team gets so focused on each particular week, and it's such a mentally tough football team. I think the offensive tackle issues would have torn this team apart in many of the different years that I've covered Tennessee football. I think they handled it. I think they got better. They went 12 personnel. I think the players said, hey, you figured out a way to get us through this. I just think the culture, and I know you hate that word, I think the culture is too strong. I'm not at all worried about that. As your take, brought to you our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. For Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Caleb, I guess it comes down to this. Mentally, who was more wrong this season? Was it us and having Tennessee overrated in the preseason? Or was it Tennessee's mentality or lack of mental fortitude when they went to Arkansas, when they weren't able to pull from the well against Georgia? I think it's more the latter. Major Moves on Twitter says, I feel like the wide receiver position for UT has been down this year. Am I wrong? Is it young developing quarterback offensive lineman combo? What does that position look like moving forward? Well, the wide receiver position, they need to get some shiftier guys that can move. But Caleb, I think it's, if you had to say that it's more of a personnel issue as opposed to an approach issue, what would you say?
I mean, I think it has been a personnel issue because of misevaluation of talent, but the Arkansas game was also an approach issue. And you keep talking about culture, and that's why they won't have a letdown against UTEP. I just told you, I was just talking about the 97 team. Dave, you're saying that 97 team didn't have amazing culture? They were led by Peyton Manning and Al Wilson and Leonard Little on defense. You're questioning the culture of the 97 team?
I'm not questioning the culture, but I will tell you this. They didn't have incredible leadership like they had in 98. And I'll take you back. Listen, here's what happened at the halftime at the SEC championship game in 1997. Okay. This is in my book. You can order it off the Hook Sports. It's online. And don't order it through Amazon, order it through me. Amazon takes everything. So, but I can tell you that Peyton Manning and Leonard Little had their daubers down. Were not in a good place because it felt like they had made it all that way and they weren't going to win a single championship throughout their very successful career. And you know who it was that stepped up and was the leader of that team immediately? Right there.
Oh, I know the story. It was Al Wilson in that moment.
Yeah. I'm not sure they win that game because they don't have the elite leadership at the top. I don't know why Al picked that time to be a leader, but he had always kind of deferred to Peyton and Leonard. But at that point, he said, which is funny to me, he said, I've never won a bleeping championship in my bleeping life. It's hard for me to really comprehend that because he was such an elite athlete. Like, he had to be at some point in Little League such a great player that he won a championship somewhere. But okay, let's take him at his word. That's what motivated him to say, listen, and I've heard different people tell different stories that maybe Peyton was put against a wall. Like, physically grabbed by the shoulder pads and put against the wall.
Oh, he also, my understanding is he also said to Peyton Manning and Leonard Little, like, if you're not going to do it for yourselves, do it for us. Like, he was basically telling them, like, how could you guys not be willing to do it for yourselves when this is your last chance? And Al Wilson had another chance. He was going to be back in 98. So I've heard that story too. I think what would happen sometimes with Peyton Manning was he was so intense, so overprepared, gave himself so much anxiety that the minute things went wrong, he kind of just fully dejected himself sometimes. And
well, I don't know that he fully dejected himself because I think elite athletes don't do that, like Michael Jordan. But I do think you could wear on somebody. And I think that there are times he wore on his teammates.
Oh, I believe that too. Because and that's where he and Leonard Little were different. It's funny that Al Wilson got intense like that because Leonard Little was known, he was a leader, but he was the quiet leader, wasn't he? He was kind of like the just do what you need to do. We'll be okay. And Peyton Manning was the get in your face, and then Al Wilson became the get in your face. So I get what you're saying, but I still think the culture of that team was really, really, really strong. And
it was a B+, but it wasn't an A+ like 98.
Okay.
I mean, an A+ overcomes the best quarterback that's ever been in your generation. A B+ does not get you. And we have to also, we're looking at this in a vacuum. We have to also remember that you probably weren't going to play for a national championship unless you went undefeated. So,
they had the national title. They actually had a national title game. That's why I was talking about how they played so ugly during that time. They had one loss, but they had a national title and reached that game that year. They were going to go play Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, and had Michigan lost to Washington State, Tennessee would have played Nebraska for the national title. So that was all in front of them.
I agree, but there's all those ifs and stuff, and Peyton had the bad knee. He shouldn't have gone on David Letterman, talked about how big his damn knee was. That didn't make any sense. Work Truck's all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is all about time. Work Trucks saves you time, less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know about Work Trucks. That's a fact. Service industry Work Trucks carries the highest trucks that your business has to have, highest quality. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online at worktrucksllc.com, worktrucksllc.com with an X. Why risk chancing your future in business on a wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. They'll find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. All right, college football rooting interest. Here we go. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Which of these games, I'm sorry, let me reset that. Your fiery hot take is what it's going to be. And it's brought to you by Double D Piping. Which of these games does Tennessee most need to have happen? A, and B, which is the most likely? Caleb, share your thoughts if you don't mind. I think everybody points to Ohio State, Indiana, correct?
Dave, you are probably the worst. You probably were the worst Christmas giver of all time, right? You probably spoiled the surprise for your kids on like Tuesday, the week before Christmas, didn't you?
I actually did. Yeah, I just couldn't hold the surprise. Yeah, no, that's funny you mentioned that.
I'm trying to build up to the biggest games, and Dave's like, "No, just go all in, man, right now." And
I'm like, "Give me other ones." Okay, let me ask you this: is it Ohio State big over Indiana or bust?
That's a tier 2 game this week, but it's the most likely one for Tennessee.
Okay.
So I told you guys, I separate these games of rooting interest by tiers each week. I'm going to start with games that you theoretically want to root for, but you could be wrong. Does that make sense? Like you could be wrong in your rooting interest.
Pipe dreams.
Well, no, what I mean is you think you want something to go a certain way, but it could work against you if other things break a certain way the rest of the way. So let me give you an example. Alabama and Oklahoma. You theoretically want Oklahoma to beat Alabama, right? Because that knocks them out and that moves you up. And also just because they're Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm. Go for it. All right.
Here's the problem.
I think you want Alabama to win.
No, because if Oklahoma, it doesn't hurt your schedule strength technically because Oklahoma is a team you played.
Well, that's true.
And also, Alabama, if they lose, they're going to drop below you. So then you're in. You move up. Here's the problem, guys. And this is kind of an underrated point. I know where you're going with it. If Alabama does lose, what quality win can Tennessee hang its hat on at that point?
I mean,
they have a bunch of solid wins, but they don't have an elite quality win.
I agree. Who's next? Who are we rooting for?
So this is the tier 1. So you want Oklahoma to beat. So you think you want Oklahoma to beat Alabama, but be careful what you wish for. You think you want UMass to beat Georgia, not happening. But be careful what you wish for if they did. And then for teams you would want to face in the college football playoff, you want Boise State to beat Wyoming and UNLV to beat San Jose State because you'd rather face them than Army. And unfortunately, if you're a Tennessee fan, you have to root for Army this weekend. So that's tier 1.
Why do you say unfortunately? I always root for the armed services. What is wrong with you? You're so anti-American.
Yes, I hate the troops. I don't, guys.
Caleb not only didn't vote, but he protested against each presidential nominee during the day. He just went back and forth because he's anti-American. I'm joking. Caleb, go ahead.
I think protesting presidential nominees, whoever they are, is very American, actually. But
I do too, but not voting for mass chaos in them both.
I mean, I wrote in Karl Marx, guys. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Okay, so this is tier 2, which is these are games that there are teams that really aren't in Tennessee's way right now to make the college football playoff. But if things break a certain way, they could be. So they're kind of pesky, annoying teams. So you just kind of want them to lose to get out of the way. And that is Utah over Iowa State. You want Kansas to beat Colorado. You want the Citadel to beat Clemson. Not happening, but you do. You would love to see Wake Forest beat Miami. You want to see Arizona State beat BYU. And you would love to see Virginia beat SMU because you don't want a one-loss SMU whining at the end of the year. Be like, we have one loss and we're better than 2-loss Tennessee, even though they're not.
Hit thumbs up if you feel strongly about that voice, whether you like it or dislike it. Hit thumbs up. We got a lot of people in the YouTube chat that have not hit thumbs up yet, so it really helps us spread the word. We appreciate it. Who's next, Caleb?
All right, tier 3. Or I guess I'm counting down. Tier 5, tier 4, now tier 3. Games that'll help Tennessee schedule strength. You'd love to see Mississippi State beat Missouri. Probably not happening, but you'd love to see it. You want NC State to beat Georgia Tech. And you really want Arkansas to beat Louisiana Tech because that'll get them to a bowl game, so the loss won't look as bad. And it'd be great if Vanderbilt beat LSU if you're a Tennessee fan. That would just be a dream if Vanderbilt beats LSU because then you could really get a chance at a quality win next week. So that's schedule strength. Now,
I'll tell you what, too, that's doable because Vanderbilt still has a lot to play for. Where they go bowling, and I think they will go bowling. What are they, 6-4?
They're already going bowling.
Well, I mean, so from now, it's whether or not you go to Liberty Bowl and that dump Memphis that you're from, or you go to a good game and when I say good game, I mean like the Belt Bowl in Charlotte. I'm not saying they're going to suddenly jump up to the Citrus or Orange Bowl.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you just don't want to go to Memphis.
Okay, Dave. All right, so this is tier 2. I will say you don't really want to go to the Liberty Bowl right now. It's under construction, and all the stuff you said is horrible about it. They're fixing it up, but it's Memphis and Nashville, both their football stadiums, because Vanderbilt Stadium are both under construction right now. But okay, so
by the way, an SEC school having a stadium under construction in this modern day and age of architecture and being able to get stuff done is the biggest head scratcher in the world. Now, I will say the last time I've heard of this happening was 2001 as Florida was redoing its press box, which is why I had to stand on the damn sidelines and I couldn't see anything. Go ahead, Caleb.
All right, so now we're at the top 2 tiers. These are the ones that you want for Tennessee for the college football playoff. These are the upsets you need to happen. So starting with, this is tier 2. These are just teams you would love to see lose to get out of your way. Auburn over Texas A&M. Texas A&M visits Auburn. That's not an undoable upset, Dave. And I know Texas A&M's behind Tennessee, but Tennessee's really going to want Texas A&M to beat Texas next week. But if Texas A&M beats Texas, they could jump Tennessee. So you really want Auburn to beat Texas A&M this weekend. Army over Notre Dame, self-explanatory, right? No really explanation needed.
Yep.
After that, yes, Ohio State over Indiana. That's like you want Ohio State to beat the brakes off Indiana. Get Indiana out of the way. Steve Sullivan, I am not from Millington or Cordova. I'm actually from East Memphis. I was raised in the city. Thank you. Okay, I wasn't raised in the burbs.
What's that? Yeah, he's like a Germantown guy. What's the spread right now for, and how likely is it that Ohio State just absolutely hammers Indiana? Our what to watch, games to watch, brought to you by our friends at Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
All right, Caleb. So what is the spread there, and what is the likelihood that Ohio State just lays the Buckeye on the Indiana Hoosiers.
Okay, Ohio State is a 13.5-point favorite. But Dave, I think they're capable of laying the Buckeye. I have a theory. I don't think they're going to. I think Ohio State.
You know why?
They don't want to.
Nope. I think the coaching staff on one sideline is significantly smarter than the coaching staff on the other sideline.
Oh, I agree with you on that. Indiana's got a better coaching staff. But I also think that Ohio State, look, Indiana's not a good team. Ohio State would much rather one-loss Indiana get in than a two-loss SEC team that is going to be significantly better. So I think Ohio State will actually actively not try to embarrass Indiana. So just watch out. There's one more game in this tier before we get to tier 1, Dave, though. And it's an underrated one if you're a Tennessee fan. You ready?
Why was I thinking that was tier 1?
No, tier 1 is there are two big games that would help them the most. So Penn State's visiting Minnesota. Dave, you do know if Penn State loses, they have 2 losses, and they'll be behind Tennessee, right? Because they have no quality wins.
Yep.
That Minnesota game, Penn State's an 11.5-point favorite. At Minnesota, that's not a gimme. I mean, Illinois lost to Minnesota earlier in the year, and you know Penn State can choke. So I think, am I crazy, or are Tennessee fans not paying enough attention to Minnesota possibly beating Penn State as a path to the college football playoff?
I don't think you're crazy at all. And I think Penn State is a very average football team. I would tell you that Tennessee beats them and would be – okay, let me ask you, you're good at the power rankings. If they met on a neutral field, I would have Tennessee by about 5.5, 6. You?
Over Penn State?
Yes.
I'd probably go 3.5. And the only reason I'd say 3.5 is because Tennessee's more defensive oriented this year, and defensive teams win closer games. So, but I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. So yeah, I think Minnesota could beat them. And if that happens, there's no debate. Tennessee's in, Penn State's gone. And the only way they would put Penn State in over Tennessee at that point is to fulfill Dave's conspiracy theory. They want 4-4 or 4-5. They don't want 5-3, basically. So that's tier 2. You ready for tier 1 though? Two big tier 1 games. And then we'll discuss the likeliest ones. Florida over Ole Miss is the most rooting interest for Tennessee possible. That is a double whammy for Tennessee because Ole Miss is knocked out, and then Florida looks like a much better win for Tennessee at that point. And that's at Florida. I don't think that game is impossible. Do you?
No, I think you have to look at Ole Miss, and they've been very erratic this season. They've had a bad loss in Kentucky. They've had a great loss theoretically in Georgia. I think the biggest problem with this entire football season is there's not an elite team or two. I think there's a bunch of good teams. Now, Oregon may prove me wrong, and they may run through the college football playoff, but I'm always going to wait and believe that when I see it. But no, I think given the history, given the fact that DJ Lagway appears to be a very competent quarterback, if not a good quarterback, given the fact that this team has rallied behind Billy Napier, no. I mean, sounds weird to say for Florida, right? But this is kind of a season maker. If they were able to upset Ole Miss and knock them out, you look back at the year as maybe not a success, but not an utter garbage dumpster failure like it looked in September.
You look back and you say Florida sticking with Billy Napier against all the wins. What everybody we've had from Florida, Dave, that we've talked to has been like, they can't fire Billy Napier and they shouldn't. And they're all kind of, you notice they're all still defending Billy Napier, and they're saying that there's so many other exterior factors working against him that he's having to.
Well, you're talking about lately. Guys like we had on in September said, I'm not sure he makes it to the kickoff of Saturday's game.
If they win on Saturday, we maybe talk about this November as the November that turned the corner for Billy Napier in Florida. All the jokes we made. I mean, like we would come back to this month.
No, I'll go a step further. I think he's going to be back, and I think the corner has already been turned. Now the question is, do you go around the corner and beat the heck out of the bully in the alley?
Yes, you're right. That's a good point. So that's a possible one. The other one, not as possible, but Kentucky's already done this once before at Ole Miss. But Tennessee fans should root like heck for Kentucky against Texas. Not going to happen, but, hey, pipe dream, right? But those would be the two most beneficial ones for Tennessee, is if Kentucky or Florida won. Now, between all these...
I don't know why you're just discounting that it could happen. I mean, again, they beat Ole Miss, and Ole Miss might have the best roster.
Yeah, but they're a team of mercenaries, as you've talked about, so they're more capable of a bad upset loss than Texas is at home. That's just where I'm at. Even though Kentucky...
September? I always make that argument after there's no championship to play for.
I feel like Kentucky's quit.
Okay.
On March 1st.
Well, maybe the case, but didn't we think that about Billy Napier? And we thought that about LSU too. We'll see.
We did. So Dave, tell me if I'm right though. There's a Mount Rushmore of games that Tennessee should watch the most, because even though 3 of them are tier 2, they are on the more likely scenario, and the tier 2 or tier 1 puts Tennessee in the playoff of upsets. So here's the 3 they should watch, or the 4 they should watch, excuse me. The 4 most important are Army, Notre Dame, right?
Yes.
Because that's possible. Ohio State, Indiana goes without saying. Florida, Ole Miss goes without saying. And Minnesota, Penn State. I think if one of those 4 goes the other way, then Tennessee's in the playoff next week. Right. And I think one of those 4 is, I mean, again, it's kind of like parlays, even though like one of those 4 is bound to happen in Tennessee's favor, right? That would be the worst luck ever if all 4 went against them. Like in one instance, they're rooting for a double-digit favorite. In the other instance, they're rooting for 3 underdogs. But what's the chance that the one double-digit favorite is the one that they're rooting for that loses, and the 3 underdogs all lose too? That would be you got to play coin flip here, but the chances are very, very much in Tennessee's favor.
I agree with that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. I think Caleb's going to admit it was wrong. Coming up next, and that is the college football playoff regular season has been better with a college football playoff. We'll see if he'll budge. It is our poll question. Do you want to go ahead and read our poll question right now, Caleb?
I'll read it when we get back. I'll give them a chance. Or do you want me to read it and then we'll give the results when it comes back? Is that how you like doing this, Dave?
That's how I like doing this, Caleb.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes you like to give everything away immediately, and sometimes you like to tease. So, I just don't know which way you're leaning sometimes. So the poll question is, has the CFP helped, hurt the regular season? Helped, Caleb is wrong, or hurt, it just matters. It just matters in CFP.
Wait. You didn't read all of it.
Has the college football playoff helped or hurt the regular season? Helped, Caleb is wrong. Ha ha.
You forgot the ha ha.
Or hurt, it just matters in the college football playoff.
All right, we'll have those results. We'll also have your thoughts. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up that and a little bit of Lady Vols talk as well. As again, I want to thank you for supporting our sponsors. We've had a recent run of that, which has been fantastic, and we greatly appreciate it. That's why we're here, including Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. Stay tuned with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
24 F-150 4x4 Super Crew, $46,997. 24 Ford Transit 250 Cargo Van, $50,950. 24 Ford Maverick XLT Hybrid, $28,929. Local you trust, power you can afford.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Technical difficulties, guys. Bear with us 1 second. Okay, I'll finish the show. Would like to apologize to you guys up front. That was live talking. Dave's power went out during the show. We are going to carry on. We're going to I'm going to give you guys the stat of the day real quick. We'll see if we can get Dave back on. If not, I will in the stream on our own. But we're actually going to do stat of the day first. Here's an interesting one for you guys. We are trashing Nico Auriemma. Not necessarily trashing him. We're trashing the offense. We're talking about the disappointment of the offense this year. And Tennessee's offense, Tennessee quarterback Nico Auriemma has 11 touchdown passes on the year. That is the second most for a freshman starting quarterback in Tennessee history, only to Casey Clausen, who had 12 in 2000. More importantly, Nico Auriemma over the weekend against Georgia became the first freshman quarterback to throw for over 2,000 yards in a season. That's right. First freshman quarterback to throw for over 2,000 yards in a season. So, a lot of the talk about Nico this year and the issues he's had and the issues the offense has had. But he's pretty much the most productive freshman in Tennessee football history. So that's kind of something that we have to point out. All right, I'm going to move on. I will get to the college football playoff talk in a second, but I'm going to start with Geno Auriemma and the Tennessee Lady Vols and just women's basketball in general, because I'm going to draw a comparison real quick that I think is going to be interesting to you guys. As you guys know, and it was very sickening to Tennessee fans. Actually, we have Dave right back in here now. Let's bring him in. Dave lives off the grid. He just learned about the internet and he just learned about electricity about 2 days ago.
I'll tell you what I learned. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'll tell you what I learned is that let's just say the internet doesn't work without electricity. We had a little power surge here, so I'm not sure exactly what happened. Hit that like and subscribe button and watch us struggle here for the next couple of minutes. But we'll see what we can do here. We'll see if I stay connected. Fingers crossed. Here we go. It is time for a look at this weekend's slate of games validate the expanded college football playoff. Caleb, you've said from the get-go that you did not think that the regular season would benefit, and as a matter of fact, be harmed by the college football playoff. I argue that that has not been the case, and in fact, that the college football playoff has actually enhanced the regular season. What say you, sir?
Yes, we are on total opposite ends of the spectrum on this. And guys, I don't care what y'all say about this weekend slate of games. And it's exciting. A lot of games that Tennessee fans have to watch. Tennessee's not the only one. A few other teams have to watch a lot of games too. This is the first weekend that's happened, though. This is the first weekend that's happened. Up until this point, every regular season game has been a semi-important game, but not a big deal if you lose. This is the first time that everybody's going to be watching games to see how it impacts the playoff.
Okay, but Caleb, that's not true. I watched it other times in September, and I made it a point to watch games like Oregon and other games that I wouldn't have watched before, or I would have watched, just kind of as, when you get done covering a game, you're pretty wired up. So I would have watched it just because it was on. Colorado too, not just because of my Heisman vote, but other games I've wanted to see how good these teams are, partly because I'm more of an eye test guy, which you're not, but I would argue it's the exact opposite.
No, I think you just watch those games because you like college football. I'm going to be honest with you. And you would watch them anyway. I don't think it's that. Look, I'm sorry. We're using this week's slate of games because you know why we're talking about this, Dave? This is the first time all year where there's more than 2 games that will actually affect the college football playoff race because the scheduling has been so bad in college football this year. And I'm sorry, the NFL has had more meaningful regular season games in college football this year, most of the time. And the only time the regular season has been meaningful in college football a lot of times is when there's upsets that you didn't see, which, okay, that's exciting. Vanderbilt beating Alabama. If you're not a Tennessee fan, Arkansas beating Tennessee. Those things are happening. But by and large, there's not much anticipation that's been built up for games each Saturday this year. And that's been a problem with the sport. And you're telling me that the second to last weekend of the regular season makes up for all of that. It doesn't. It doesn't. Right. This is my argument, is that I've argued this the whole time. The college football playoff will make the second to last week of the regular season through December way more epic than it ever was. But it's at the sacrifice of all of September and October. Oh, and by the way, I'm not even that accurate about the second to last weekend of the regular season through December. You know why, Dave? Included in that is conference championship week, which doesn't even matter anymore.
Okay. I'll give you the conference championship games. College football playoff has helped or hurt the regular season. Helped. Caleb is wrong. Ha, ha, ha. Hurt. It just matters in the college football playoff. To me, it's changed it significantly. And I'll take this a step further. I said this in September, if you remember. I think the level of play has gone up because you don't have an elite team. You had an elite team when Georgia won a couple of championships, right? You had an elite team when Michigan won a championship, partly because they were cheating with Connor Stallions. But they were a very good football team. You do not have an elite team because we have now seen the impact of NIL. We have seen guys that say, I'm not playing at this school, so I'm going to go to another school. I mean, Dillon Gabriel is a great example. Yeah, he didn't sign with Oregon out of high school. He transferred there. I could go on and on and on about quarterbacks that have moved on and have had success, Caleb. And the whole level of college football is higher, partly because of the changes. I would throw college football playoff in there, but also NIL and the transfer portal.
Dave, you're cheating. You're totally cheating. Because here's why. I didn't sit there and lament the lack of top 25 games this year when talking about this. You know why? The lack of top 25 games this year comes from conference expansion and these mega conferences that has created such an imbalance of scheduling. I'm not blaming the 12-team playoff for that. So you can't credit the 12-team playoff for the level of play coming up everywhere. That's because of NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, that's what's caused that. That has made it more exciting. Georgia week to week, Tennessee week to week, Alabama week to week. These teams that are top 10, they're playing games week to week where they could fall at any moment and you don't know when. It's not like a few years ago where, Dave, I mean, I do remember when you probably remember when you would cover Alabama, even throughout the 75% of the SEC season, it was, okay, how will they cover by halftime or not? I mean, that was the case with Alabama, and it was kind of horrible.
Okay, can I ask you this question, though? Do you think our fans, and they are, because I saw it crop up a lot on the message board, do you think they would be as worried about Florida Ole Miss if not for the college football playoff? That's still an SEC team. That's still one you're going to watch. Maybe you root against Lane Kiffin, or maybe you root against Florida just because of your own rooting interest and how you feel as a person. But you wouldn't go out of your way to watch that game, especially the holiday season, the holiday week coming up, maybe some of your family's in town. You're going to tell them, I want to watch this game because it affects Tennessee. And we're not going to go see, we used to always go see movies around Thanksgiving. I'm not going to go see some stupid movie that's on TV like Joker 2, which got just terrible reviews. I'm going to stay here and I'm gonna watch the college football playoff. I think it affects people and how they'll handle this weekend and all the weekends moving forward. I think your college football fans are going, let's say, I'm just throwing a number out there, okay? With our show, with Saturdays, with everything, they spend 10 to 12 hours a week, okay, consuming college football news. I think that number in the foreseeable future, and has been this year, is going to be 12, 16, 18 hours a week. And I think it's already shown up in some of the television ratings. The Georgia-Alabama game in September was one of the highest rated non-championship games in recent memory. What do you attribute that to?
Dave, that's my point. It makes the games, you're right. Tennessee fans wouldn't pay attention to the Florida Ole Miss game as much as they are now. But it's the second to last week of the regular season. You're missing all the other games in September and October that Tennessee fans did not pay that much attention to, that they would have paid more attention to in a 4-team playoff or a 2-team playoff. That's what I'm talking about. You are talking about, yes, around the holidays, things are getting much more exciting. And maybe that's fun because, it's like coinciding this with the holidays is going to make it even more fun. But the truth of the matter is, it's at the expense of September and October. And I didn't want September and October to become irrelevant, and they have.
I want to play this to see if A, it makes people giggle, but B, to see that because of the power surge, if all my stuff's still working. So tell me if you can hear this.
Nope. No.
Okay, so you can hear it. All right, fine. It said that's crazy. Caleb, again, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Go back to September. Alabama's 41-34 victory over Georgia on Saturday night averaged 12 million viewers, according to Nielsen. It was also ESPN's most streamed regular season game. The audience peaked at 14.1 million viewers. To give you an idea, that is the most watched regular season primetime game since 2017, when Alabama and Florida State played on the opening weekend when everybody's excited and got 12.3 million viewers. Caleb, if you're looking for more eyeballs on televisions, sorry, buddy, it's worked.
You just brought up Alabama, Georgia regular season. Alabama, Georgia are the two premier teams of college football for the past 5 years. If they ever met in a regular season, it was going to stop the college football world. And it turned out to be, the reason the game picked up, it turned out to be a thrilling game. You just mentioned Alabama, Florida State in 2017. That wasn't even a thrilling game, and it still outdrew Alabama, Georgia this year. There is not a game that had teams with two hype behind them of that level like Alabama, Georgia, in years.
Caleb, can I give you another example? And this is not in any way a scientific example.
By the way, hit the board. I think your mic's back, so I think you can hit the board now.
That's crazy.
There you go. We got it.
Oh, man. That was scary. Hey, it was nice, though, that we had a power surge during the break. That never happens. By the way, it happened right when we went to break. All right, so, but Caleb, I gave you scientific evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to give you day-to-day, just pragmatic evidence. I got a buddy who's not a big college football fan, but he likes Georgia. He's in the Chattanooga area, and recently a lot of people have picked if they like Tennessee, Alabama, or Georgia because there's no real allegiance in that city, which is part of the reason I didn't like living there. So he made sure, I remember him saying the week of, I said, so what are you doing this weekend? He goes, well, I got to watch the game. He went out of his way to watch that game. And I think part of that is because a championship could be at stake in September. What if, Alabama beats Georgia? Both of those teams just have 1 or 2 losses at the end of the season, and that's the determining factor between a bye and or a home playoff game. I think they've incentivized it enough where it's not an elimination game like maybe it would have been back in the day where you had to go undefeated to make a national championship game. But I think it's incentivized just enough. I got a lot of problems with the college football playoff, but you and I are totally on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to if it's made the regular season special.
Okay, let me ask you this. You keep bringing up Alabama, Georgia. did you really? How many people do you know that shut everything down to watch Oregon, Ohio State?
From the South or from Big Ten area?
Everywhere.
I'd argue more than would have had there not been a college football playoff and that game not meant so much. If that's
agree, that was
a non-conference game, it's way different.
Okay, totally disagree on this. I'll go a step further. Texas and Georgia. That game didn't have the same magnitude of feel to it and the same impact as it would have last year if Georgia beat Texas 30-15 at Texas. And
screw that.
I'm sorry. I just don't. Alabama, Georgia was a unique one in a unique situation. I think largely what you turn September into, look, opening weekend of college football to me, there were only, can we agree on this, Dave? There were only 2 opening events to a season that carry a level of magnitude as exciting as any other part of the season. And that was the Daytona 500 and opening weekend of college football. Does anything come close to those 2 in terms of how they carry the rest of the season for the sport?
No. Can I offer something up real quick?
What's up?
The Oregon Ducks defeated the Ohio State Buckeyes in one of the most highly anticipated games of the college football season. And this was written a couple weeks ago, a month and a half ago. The game was broadcast on NBC during prime time, and the network just announced the matchup got a 13.4 million rating. That many viewers. That is unbelievable. That, to me, is absolutely stunning. According to NBC, the game between Oregon and Ohio State received the highest ratings of a Big Ten regular season matchup held during prime time since 2008. Caleb, I love you, but you're arguing up the wrong tree.
So let's go back to 2008. There was no playoff then. I'm game. They just said since 2008. There's my proof. 2008, when less people were watching, there was a game that drew better ratings.
Wait, but this is the first year of doing this. This is like you looking at Quincy Calhoun and thinking he's not going to be a great basketball player because he's 4 months old. I mean, they just started.
No, the first year is the spike because everybody's so intrigued by how this will affect the college football playoff. I told you this. There would be a sugar high with the expanded playoff, and there has been a sugar high. That sugar high is going to come down. I always bring up the NASCAR point. The Chase Cup, you do know, Dave, that right after the Chase Cup, NASCAR actually grew in ratings the next 2 years. And then it tanked. It tanked because the Chase Cup, all it did was make people not care about the Daytona 500, which was the biggest event of the year in NASCAR, and made people not care about any of those summer races because they said, let's prioritize November races, which was stupid. And I'm telling you, that's going to happen here. There's a sugar high, and you brought up Oregon, Ohio State. You can bring up Alabama, Georgia. But I can bring up these average, one, there hasn't been that many this year because of expanded conferences, not the college football playoffs fault, but there's not the same level of intrigue behind when a 4th-ranked Ohio State maybe plays I don't know, trying to pull up their schedule right now because you're bringing it up. But if they play like a Minnesota or somebody like that, that doesn't have the same magnitude that it once had. And in a few years, Dave, I'm telling you this, in a few years, those Ohio State, Oregon, and those Alabama, Georgia games will carry very little magnitude going forward in a few years. People will not care as much about them. And I'm saying that's a sugar high for that this year. Because, well, Ohio State did that. Who was watching Ohio State blow out Michigan State? Who was watching them blow out Iowa? Nobody. Back in the day, you would watch that game because you might think there might be a chance Ohio State gets upset and things go a little bit haywire. So that's the problem with this system. And you are selling me on a couple of top 5 matchups during the regular season, and then November, the second to last weekend of November, the expanded slate of games. That doesn't make up for how every game mattered from the 20 to 25 up through September and October and early November. So you're going to see, I'll give you this. You're actually going to see an increase in regular season ratings this year over last year, I bet. I'm willing to look that up. I don't know if that's true. We haven't confirmed it yet, but I'm sure that'll be proven when the year ends. You'll see it next year.
Okay,
when
well,
2027
so far the numbers I've gave you would support that.
College
football playoff has helped hurt regular season. Caleb was wrong. 68% hurt. It just matters in the college football playoff. and that's what you're tuning into.
So
may I give you just a little perspective as someone that covered NASCAR? I hate that comparison because NASCAR did so many things wrong when they were riding high in like 3 years. It's kind of like the superstar who decides that it's a good time to try some different drugs and it's time to do things like, I don't know, P. Diddy does. I mean, they did so many things wrong.
Wait, you're saying NASCAR ran a sex trafficking ring?
Yeah. I'm saying we need more lube. But Caleb, they did as a guy who covered NASCAR, I just can't even begin to list how many things they did wrong at that time. So I don't like that example personally. That's just kind of where I stand on that.
I think there is a level of, I'm just going to say this. There is a level of the sport being cheapened with Jimmy Johnson winning so many Chase Cup titles, though, because many people don't believe he's better than Earnhardt or Jeff Gordon or any of those guys were. And so it looks really bad that he has the most Chase Cup titles.
Well, here's the other issue is that they went into the fall thinking they could pull about 10% of the viewers away from football. And as one guy that knows football ratings and marketing, I said, can they do that? Because if that's their goal and that's it, you want to pull like 10, 20% away. You're not going to beat football, right?
Right.
But if you can just hold your own during football season, that would have been considered a win. And he knows television, and he goes, quote, he goes, college football is going to beat their ass. And I was like, okay. And the football in general, he's just going to be, it's not close. And he turned out to be absolutely right. Last week brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Geno Auriemma in the news. And I want to set up a poll question, but why are we talking Geno Auriemma here? Steve says, call Donald Trump. He'll fix this play. I'm not going to do that. We're not going to talk politics. We're just not. All right. Geno Auriemma, what's he doing?
Geno Auriemma has officially become the all-time winningest college basketball coach, beating Fairleigh Dickinson University Wednesday night. He now has 1,217 wins compared to 162 losses, which, I mean, whatever you think of him, that's an insane record, by the way. But
now, is this the all-time winningest coach, men and women?
Yeah, men and women, the most successful of all time. I believe he surpassed, he surpassed Stanford coach Tara Vanderveer, who had surpassed Pat Summitt because he'd been coaching for so long. And so now Geno Auriemma is number one. I believe the winningest in men's basketball is Mike Krzyzewski. And he has 1,202. So right now the rankings are: 1 is Geno Auriemma, 2 is Mike Krzyzewski, 3, I'm not Mike, excuse me, 2 is Tara Vanderveer, 3 is Mike Krzyzewski, and 4 is Pat Summitt. That's the top 4 men's and women's all-time winningest head coaches.
Let me tell you
and
something.
Then 5 is Vivian Stringer.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, sure.
Mike Krzyzewski is more likely to win a national title than Geno Auriemma is to win another one.
Well, Mike Krzyzewski's not coaching anymore.
I know. But if he decided tomorrow that he wanted to come back with the team they have and a huge guy that's like a mini Victor Wembanyama that can shoot the 3, he could win one this year. Geno Auriemma had to have a special coach, and I think you would a special player, and he was not a special coach. And that sounds weird to say with as many of the national championships as he won. But you went into an average season back then with 4 teams, maybe that could win it. And some seasons, it was just readily apparent that it was the Lady Vols in UConn, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not an X's and O's guy. He was a great recruiter. He was able to win enough battles against Tennessee to win championships. Kudos to him, but that ship has sailed. Our poll question is this. Do you even worry about Geno anymore? Yep, can still win championships. 38% of the vote. No to even. Caleb, if I made you vote on that, I want to see what you think as we remind you portions of the program brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. For Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. For you now. You ready?
That's hot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speaking of P. Diddy. So the first one is, are you even worried? If you're a Lady Vols fan, are you even worried about Geno Auriemma, or is he just another dude? Or
He's
just another coach. Sorry.
He's just another coach. I mean, he hasn't won a national title in 8 years.
I agree. I'm going to take it a step further. You ready for this one?
Yep.
This one is hot. Real hot. Paris?
That's hot.
Who's more likely to win a natty? Josh Heupel or Geno Auriemma?
I'm still going to go Geno on that.
No.
You think it's Josh Heupel?
I do, and I didn't know if I wanted you to agree with me or not, because I feel strongly that Heupel is a better football coach, X's and O's wise, than Geno is a good basketball coach. Again, I think Geno got the benefit from women's college basketball getting bigger, so he was able to get more prominent recruits. And I think that Josh Heupel is going to be able to do that based off the success that Tennessee has been able to have in the past 3 years. Let's say they make the college football playoff. Let's say they're a 10-win team. You don't go into any living room saying this is a rebuilding program, Caleb. You don't. And you don't have to have just one guy. Geno has to have a couple of different gals to help him out. And I don't think he can do that at a high level. He's older now. If I had to bet the mortgage right now on who wins the championship, to me, it's not even close. I'm putting my money on Josh Heupel.
Okay, so here's you are right about Geno Auriemma that it's almost like the John Calipari of women's basketball, that he used certain connections, the ESPN building right there. There were some Nike ties that were happening that allowed him to just recruit the way John Calipari does. And the difference between Geno and John Calipari is when you recruit women's basketball stars, they don't leave after a year. So you get these players and they are there for 4 years. So of course they're going to be dominant. So I get your point on that. So maybe you're right, but I do think sometimes you enter such a level of credibility because of your success that it becomes very easy to recruit even as the sport gets more competitive. I think
Caleb, though, if he walks in a prospect's home right now, you pointed it out. If that prospect's 17 years old, the last time that Geno won it all, they were 9.
Yeah, but Dave, he just passed Tara Vanderveer as the all-time winningest coach, who was at Stanford. I just want to point this out. Tara Vanderveer was Pat Summitt's main rival in the late 80s, early 90s. She won 2 national titles that were sandwiched between Pat Summitt's 3 national titles during that time period. Her last one was 92. Tara Vanderveer then went 30 years without a national title, and everybody said the game had passed her by, and then she won one in 2021. So, I mean, things can happen really fast. Now, I want to say this because we have to point out the elephant in the room. Let's give Geno credit on this. I agree with you on X's and O's. We don't know how good he is. He was smart in how he used his resources to recruit well. Can we say that? He was ahead of that was intelligent. What you're saying, we kind of have to apply to Pat Summitt. I mean, let's be honest. When Pat Summitt took over at Tennessee, she took over a program. And for those who don't know the history of this, Tennessee was one of the only schools in the South to embrace Title IX when it happened in 71. I mean, Tennessee was ahead of the curve. They fully embraced Title IX, and Tennessee had high school basketball in the state since the 40s. Tennessee was one of 4 states that had women's high school basketball pre-World War II. So they had So Pat Summitt had a giant crop of talent to recruit from that other coaches didn't have. She had a school embracing Title IX. She was ahead of the curve. She demanded the high schools at Tennessee get rid of that. I don't know if you know how basketball used to be played in women's high school basketball, David. It was like 4 on one end and 3 on one end and 3 on the other, offense and defense. And Pat Summitt's like, I can't recruit these players. You got to change. And she did. And she kept Tennessee ahead of the curve because she embraced women's basketball. She helped build the brand, and her help building the brand is what helped her recruit so well. But is there anything, I mean, let me just ask you, X's and O's, Pat Summitt or Geno Auriemma, or neither?
I would take Pat Summitt. And I think Pat Summitt would have adapted. God rest her soul. A couple of comments on the message board. Dave Heupel already has one. Sorry. The undefeated season at UCF is not a national.
No. They're talking about he played in 1-1.
Oh, okay. No. I meant coach. Sorry. Maybe I didn't put that out there clearly enough. And then ultimately, do you think Kim can win a national title? I hate to cop out, but I just don't know at this point.
We talked about this before we're going in the show. Can I tell you why Kim Caldwell is the most home run hire that has ever been made by an athletic director?
That's hot.
Lay it on me.
And you said this, and I'm going to take it further. When you're an athletic director, you have to weigh the balance of wanting to win with wanting to draw in fans and marketing and with your budget. You have to weigh those 3 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, football, you just go with wanting to win. I think basketball, if you think you got a national title, coach, you just go with wanting to win. But if you think you just got a perennial contender, you may want to go for more entertainment, which is like when Tennessee hired Bruce Pearl. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Women's basketball, you really got to think of the budget, because you're the one who tells me like that it's not a revenue generating sport yet still. And what did Danny White do with Kim Caldwell? He found a coach on the cheap that, by the way, runs a system that is the most entertaining system you could possibly see. So while he got her for cheap, her style is the best thing you could hope for to at least maximize the amount of revenue you could generate from the sport. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
How is that not a home run hire in those 2 things? He got her on the cheap while she will maximize the possible revenue for the Lady Vols with her style. If she wins a national title, Dave, Danny White got the trifecta. Because can we say this? Is this unfortunate? When you look for a women's basketball coach, budget and marketing outweigh winning.
It sounds weird to say, doesn't it? Let me ask you this. So let's say Paul Bear Bryant comes back to life, and he's the head coach for a team, and he walks in there with his reputation. Is that bigger than NIL and current things that all these programs have going on? I mean, Geno Auriemma is 70. I don't think he goes in and wins any recruiting battle because of his name. I also don't think that he has the time or near the energy to recruit 5, 6, 7, 8 girls. I think that he focused on one girl, zoned in on her, and that was it.
No, he would go back and look at the recruiting rankings. He would focus. He started by doing that, and that's how he got Rebecca Lobo and Diana Taurasi. But then as later, like during the Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart years, those were the stars. And then it was like 7 deep of players that were just better than everybody else in women's basketball during that time. And it was insane. You bring up the Bear Bryant question. I mean, people say, this is why Nick Saban retired. We can talk about that. I still think the credibility of a coach helps them recruit, because you talk about it all the time. Stop tripping over nickels and chase the dollars, as John Calipari says. I think there's going to be a lot of kids that I'll say this with Bear Bryant. You brought him up specifically. I want to take him in a vacuum. No, he wouldn't be able to recruit well, because Dave, I don't know if you know this, but during the Bear Bryant days, Alabama wasn't a factory for NFL talent the way they were under Nick Saban.
You mean the state?
No, the school, the program.
Well,
like Tennessee was.
Yeah, both the state and the program have changed drastically under Bear Bryant.
Now they are.
I'm sorry, Nick Saban.
Under Nick Saban. Now they are a factory for NFL talent. That's how Saban built them. Bear Bryant did not recruit. They were almost like Nebraska of the SEC, where they dominated the SEC with kids that just their whole life's goal was to play football for Alabama, wasn't it, during that time? And they didn't expect to go to the NFL. So that was much more common with Alabama during the Bear Bryant days. I know everybody thinks Ken Stabler, Joe Namath, but what I just talked about was more common. Nick Saban dominated with Alabama by turning it into a factory for NFL talent.
You know what he did, though? you just brought up something weird that was similar to Geno Auriemma. When it came to Stabler, when it came to Namath, he got the jewel of the class, did he not? I don't know if you know this, but Joe Namath could 362-handed dunk. Did you know that before the knee injuries?
I did not know that, actually.
He was an amazing athlete. There was no question that he was the jewel of that class before we had recruiting rankings.
Well, but you also have to remember, those were the 60s. Bear Bryant changed his offense completely in the 70s when he ran the wishbone. There was no jewel of the class when you ran the wishbone offense, Dave. There was no jewel at that point.
I think Tommy Frazier's a pretty good jewel. I just
that was a power eye, and that was way in the 90s, and that was a unique get. Who was the jewel of Tom Osborne's teams before that? Turner Gill in the 80s. He wasn't a jewel.
Fair.
And by the way, Lawrence Phillips was the jewel of that team.
He was. Wasn't the jewel of a man.
No, steroids can do that to you.
Yeah. I have to be. Is he still with us?
I'm just going to look this up.
We're going to tell a joke if he was, but if he's not, I don't want to do that.
Well,
the fact that he was playing a bunch of kids.
He passed away.
Okay, let's move on. He was playing a bunch of kids in the backyard one time, and things didn't go his way. Somehow the kids in the backyard beat him in backyard football. How does that even happen? And he thought it would be apt to go get in his car and drive on the field and run them down. Not a great move. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones. I'm not even sure that Banks & Jones could have gotten him out of that. Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Have a fantastic day, everyone. We'll talk to you on Friday with Ollie Lane and Will West to return to the program. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.